G'day everyone and welcome to Chris Rankin's Music Crush. Today I am doing the Voivod albums, ranking the Voivod albums, their complete discography, well all the studio full-length albums anyway. I've been thinking about doing this one for a little while. They are definitely one of my favourite bands of all time, so when I thought about doing it, I thought, yeah, I'd like to do it, and then all of a sudden I went, oh yeah, this is going to be a little bit tricky, a little bit tough, because I love this band so much. They've got 14 studio albums. They are ultra consistent. There is no album that I even less than like a lot. Even my least favourite album, I still like it a lot. And because they're just so consistent, I thought this could be really tough, really tough. And I know all these albums well, but yeah, for about 4 or 5 days before, at least, I did a bit of listening just to make sure that I wasn't going on old memories, or you know, your mind sometimes plays tricks on you that you thought this was better or worse or whatever. So I just wanted to make sure that right now, as of today, this is what I think. It could change. It always has changed. It does. And there was a couple that I was surprised about that I thought I seemed to put a lot higher. And then when I listened, I went, no, there's actually others that I think I love a lot more. But let me be very clear. I love all these albums. Even my least favourite is still an 8.5 out of 10. So that's, let me be, if you see an album that you love by them and it's low, that's fine. But don't think that I don't like it because it's down the bottom or down near the bottom or whatever. I just love this band so much and everything they've done. So yeah, they started out in 1982 in Quebec, a place called Saguenay. Although I think the city used to have a different name for some reason. But yeah, Saguenay in Quebec, Canada. And the thing I love about Voivod is, now I discovered them on the Raw album, or Raw. I'm not really, always never really quite sure how you say that, but yeah. And which came out in 1986. And the thing I've always loved about this band is they don't sound like anyone else. They never have. No one else sounds like them, although there's been a few that have sort of, I guess, have been influenced by them, for sure. But it doesn't matter how many of those sort of, and I won't say copycat, that's a bit of a mean word for band, but you know what I mean. It doesn't matter how many bands that sort of come out and maybe try and latch onto their style. They just don't, they never sound like them. No one ever does. Just a unique band. They've changed their sound a fair bit over the time, never going too far away from what their core sound is. A few albums were quite different. But just incredible songwriting. Songwriting that is just not like anyone else. The sound is not like anyone else. You're very hard to, even going back through listening to all this discography, the riffs are just not like anyone else. The time signatures are different. And it's impossible also, if someone was to ask you, oh, Voivod, what subgenre are they? It's kind of hard to say. I mean, the classic albums that everyone knows, you could base it off that, of what you think their subgenre is, but that's might be a little bit misleading as well, because not all their albums are like that, and yeah, and that's just what's special about them. And when a new album of theirs comes out, it's really interesting. I think they're one of the bands that really get the blend of just right, of being able to progress their sound and sound different and interesting and a little bit something different on each album. But it's still always You're never really going to be too upset for their changing their sound. There's a couple. There's probably about 3 albums where they changed their sound a little bit. But you'd never go, well, that's not a Voivod album. It still sounds like Voivod. And you're also never going to say, oh my God, Voivod, they've just made the same album for the last 40 years and it sounds exactly the same. They have that amazing ability to get that perfect blend and walking that line between sounding new and fresh and a little bit different each time, but still, no doubt about it, it's Voivod. And I think they're one of the best bands to have managed to nail that very difficult art that a lot of bands will either put out the same album every single time, or they change their album and the sound so much that they really alienate their fans, and this band nail it. So before I get started on the countdown, I have ranked them all. This won't be included in the countdown, but this is their demo, To the Death. This got re-released on CD in 2011, which I got. And this was actually recorded live in a rehearsal studio in 1984. And this is brilliant because it has all their early stuff. So some of these songs would make it, well, quick look through there. Yeah, all of these. I don't know if Bursting Out, that was a cover, isn't it? I can't remember if that came out on a later album, but I probably did. I can't remember for some reason. All the others I know for sure are all on later studio albums. But this is great because this is them before they'd released any full-length studio album, and that was actually recorded live in a rehearsal studio, all this. So yeah, from 1984, To the Death. So this is the one that sort of started everything before they got started, if you know what I mean. But yeah, then this is great. I love this because I love always to hear a band sound before they get going. So, of course, it started out with the 4 members, and with Voivod, they have the nicknames. They always have. Even if a new person comes in, they get a neat nickname. Even when the sort of famous bass player Jason Newsted came into the band, he even took on the nickname of J-Sonic. So Voivod started out with Away, Blackie, Piggy, may he rest in peace, and Snake. They are the 4 members that have been the most throughout. There's been some changes, and obviously Piggy's no longer with us, and Blackie's no longer there as well. He did come back for a while, but he's no longer in the band anymore. But those are the 4 members that have been on most albums. Snake has been on almost every album, and Away he's the only member that's been on every single album. Snake did go away for a little bit, but then he come back and he's with the band now, and his unique vocals. That's another thing about this band. The vocals of this band has always meant that it's really tricky to categorise, because Snake's vocals sometimes sound like punk. They sound like a mix between, sometimes they almost sound, when he does a little bit of the softer stuff, they sound like new wave or post-punk. But in the aggressive stuff, it's quite punky in his style, and very different. He doesn't sound like anyone else. And even when Eric Forrest did E-Force, his vocals were still quite different as well. So, as we're going along, I'll try and remember the band members on each one, but I don't want to make this way too long. As I say, there's 14 studio albums. So we'll get started. So coming in at number 14, and this is the only one that I'm very sure is at the bottom. As I say, it's not to say that I don't love this album. There's many things I like about it. A lot of the songs on here I really like a lot. And as I say, it would still be 8.5 out of 10. And I certainly didn't crucify them for the change in the sound on this album. Not at all. Not at all. It was probably the biggest departure of sound that they've ever had from album to album, I think. But it still sounded like them. It's definitely their most... To say Voivod light, that sounds like there's no effort put into it, or there's no excellent songwriting. All that's there, but it's just quite simply their lightest album. It'd be a big push to call this metal. It's pretty much prog rock, alternative rock. hard rock. Catchy. Anyway, I'll get on to it. I'm talking a lot before I even show the album. So coming in at number 14 is Angel Rat. And I know some of you love this album, and I love it too. I've always said this with bands, it depends what you grew up with the band. If you grew up with a band having a sound, it's not to say that you always want them to have that sound, but when there's an album that's very different from that core sound, you're just not going to quite love it as much. It depends. If you came into Voivod on this album, then you probably love it. And other things, the earlier raw stuff, you might be thinking, oh, yeah, that's not really for me. So, but there, coming in at number 14 is Voivod Angel Rat. This came out in 1991. Clouds in My House, brilliant song. Best Regards, the title track. Golem, I absolutely love. And Nuage Fractal, brilliant album. On the back. This is still the core members, Snake, Away, Piggy and Blackie. As I say, alternative rock, prog rock, hard rock, but very light on, it's almost sounds a little bit new wave at the time. It almost sounds a little bit pop punk, not pop and punk like Blink-182, please. It's nothing like that at all. But because of Snake's vocals and just the style that it's written, there's a little bit about it. So yeah, coming in at number 14, Angel Rat. Coming in at number 13, we have Infinity. A good album, great album. Love it a lot. The only thing I'll say about this album is, now look, Piggy still is on this album. Obviously this was released 4 years after he passed away. He passed away in 2005. This was released, but the guitars and a lot of the stuff on here is all him. In fact, I'm pretty sure all of it on here is his stuff. There was 2 albums released after he passed away, Couture's and Infinity, and it's all him still. So Jason Newsted's on this one. Now, because obviously this was all recorded before he passed away, I do wonder if, I don't know the right way to say this, I'm not sure if, how can I say this properly? The album is a little bit bland, so I wonder if some of the songs on here are extra things that weren't included on other albums, if you know what I mean. Obviously, they were all recorded, and the parts of Dennis were all recorded 4 years earlier. So I like this album a lot. I like it more than Angel Rat, and it's it's a great listen. It's enjoyable. I find the songs don't quite stick with me as much as a lot of other Voivod songs and on other albums. There's still lots to love about this, don't get me wrong. It's still a good 8.6, 8.7 out of 10 for sure. Just, and look, when you rank albums, you have to put things somewhere, and so it's number 13. But I love Treasure Chase, absolutely love From the Cave, Global Warming, brilliant song. Voivod, a lot of their stuff is all about the future, science fiction, outer space, planets, aliens, all interesting stuff. Global Warming shows that. Even a song on here, Crap Radio, which is that's what it's about. And Destroy After Reading, absolutely love. Really good. This is a gatefold, very nice. Sound on this record is fantastic, absolutely fantastic. I'll pull one of the records out. But yeah, and as I say, it's an excellent album. It really is. Don't get me wrong. Don't look at this and go, oh my, I can't believe it. He's put it down at number 13. You got to put them somewhere. You got to rank them somewhere, and yeah. There we go. Custom label there on the sign. These sleeves are terrible. I've got to replace these sleeves. These ones really seem to get a lot of static. Yeah, I just always get stuck. And then of course you have to muck around on camera while you're trying to not make a video too long. But yeah, so Infini. Coming in at number 13, Infini. This came out 2009. Excellent album. Excellent album. Just, yeah, you know, it's, I don't think the songwriting's quite as good. You know, the playing, the musicianship is always, this band, that's one thing, you know, the musicianship's always awesome, but just the songwriting a little bit, and you know, as I say, it was released 4 years after Piggy passed away, sadly, and it kind of feels like that, to be honest, a little bit. Kind of feels like that. Now, coming in at number 12, spoke about it a few minutes ago, 14, which I don't know French very well, but I believe 14 is like the phonetic, that the way it's spelt there is the phonetic for the sound of the French word for 14. So they believe that this was their 14th album. It is overall, as far as the studio albums, it's not the 14th, but yeah, that's where the name of it comes from, that weird name. A good album, really good album. I like this a fair bit more than Infini. So as I say, this comes in at number 12. This is a really good album. If you don't know Voivod at all, this is probably their most... Now, Angel Rat is accessible, but I would never tell anyone to listen to Angel Rat first, because it's not really a good representation of Voivod sound. This album is, but with that Voivod sound, I think this is probably their most accessible album. Snake's vocals are not quite so punky and raw on this album. You know, this is a long way into their career now. He's honed his vocals and the, you know, the songwriting is excellent. Not quite as avant-garde and maybe weird and progressive on other albums. Probably, you know, it's definitely metal for sure. And it's probably the most straightforward of their metal albums. Angel Rat's quite straightforward, but it's not really metal. This is probably, I think, their most straightforward of their metal albums. So if you've never heard of Voivod before, obviously they're big classics, and I'll talk about them when we get deeper into the count, but are good starting points. But sometimes those classic albums, as much as I love them, if you're not familiar with Voivod, yeah, it might take you a little while to get into them. I love them from the first minute I heard Raw. I just absolutely loved it. But yeah, this is a very good gateway album. How's that? Now, this came out 2006, so this came out in the next calendar year after Piggy passed away. And a really good, solid album. A good album that's just excellent to listen to. Doesn't overly challenge you, but it's still Voivod. There's no doubt about it. Heavy metal, not really progressive metal on this. I'd just call this straight up heavy metal. Not really even thrash also. It's just a straight up heavy metal album. Favourite songs on here are The Getaway, Mr. Clean, absolutely love Mr. Clean, No Angel, and Polaroids. They're my favourite songs on here. Nice gatefold, and you can see Away has done all the artwork on all the Voivod albums. The drummer, the guy who's the only member that's been on every album and been with Voivod right from the start, so he's kind of the heart and soul. Since Piggy has passed away as well, even more, Away is the heart and soul of Voivod. But until Piggy passed away, Piggy and Away had been on every album together. They were the driving force behind Voivod. Yeah, I will take out the vinyl. This is another one that hasn't got a very good sleeve on it. Oh, actually, no, the sleeve's fine. It's just hard getting it back in the jacket. There we go. Voivod Couture's. Great sounding record. One thing I've always noticed about Voivod, you know, I know it's not always up to in the hands of the band or whatever, but one thing I've always noticed about Voivod is that their records sound absolutely brilliant. Every single one of them always sound good. Production on Voivod albums, even the two early first ones that are raw, I still like it. You know, there's hardly any production on any album where I go, gee, that just doesn't sound good. But anyway, yeah, coming in at number 12, Couture's 2006. Coming in at number 11, one of the albums that did have a bit of a departure, like Angel Rat. Coming in at number 11, we've got Negatron. By the sound of it, the title, and the look of it, you might be able to guess, but this is very much... best way to describe this would be an industrial metal with lots of groove metal, very much. And overall... Now, don't get me wrong, they've got other albums that are probably more aggressive. But as far as heaviness, like crunchy, deep heaviness, this would be their heaviest album, I think, overall. As far as pure heaviness, where you go, whoa, that really sounds... You know, they're really getting into the heavy stuff here. This came out in 1995, so, you know, that time is circa... Death metal's huge, industrial, groove metal's huge. Not to say that Voivod were copying that, but they just thought, hey, we'll show the world that we can do that too, and we'll blow you away by doing it. Not really much progressive on here, not really. I would just call it, and not really much thrash either. It's industrial, groove metal, heavy metal. The quirkiness of them always will mean that you can think there's a little bit of prog to it, but not much. I love this album. This is a fair good step up from the three that I've already mentioned. This is, from this album on, this next big grouping, from here till about number 8 is where I had probably my biggest trouble trying to separate them and rank them. They're all very close in this next grouping. I just went through, listened to the songs, and just had to really try and separate little tiny pieces of why I like something a bit more. But I love this album. Project X, one of their heaviest songs ever. Nano Man, extremely heavy song. Probably a few of the songs on here, probably the closest they ever got to extreme metal. Really, you know, you can really hear it. Cosmic Conspiracy, I love. Bio TV. So good. Brilliant album. This came out in 1995. And this is one of the few albums where Snake doesn't do the vocals on here. And this was only a 3-piece at this time. So this was Piggy, Away on drums, and a guy by the name of Eric Forrest. And he went under the nickname of E-Force. And he played bass, so Blackie wasn't on here, the long-time bassist, and Snake, so E-Force, he was the vocalist and he played bass. But yeah, coming in at number 11. Coming in at number 10, self-titled album, Voivod. A lot of people say when you're this deep into your career and you release a self-titled album, you're in trouble. You've run out of ideas, you've run out of creativity. Not so on this. This is a fantastic album. Really, really, really good album. And now let me think. From memory, yeah, because Target Earth to The Wake is 5 years. Infinity to Target Earth was 4. So yeah, this would be the longest. So this was 2003. Yeah, the longest gap between albums was between the one before this, Phobos, in 97, when this came out in 2003. That's the longest gap they've had between albums. Excellent, excellent album. This is kind of, you know, a modern album of everything that Voivod had done already. There's some straight up heavy metal on here. There's some sort of heavier industrial sounding songs on here. There's thrash. It's definitely progressive too. And a lot of really, really good songs on here. I remember when this came out, I was not blown away because I loved this band already, but yeah, I really loved this and thought, wow, Voivod are going strong. They're really, really going strong. They felt energized. It felt like the songwriting they were really excited about. So this is Away, Snake, Piggy, of course, and Jason Newsted, Jay Sonic. Great, great album. Facing Up, awesome. Blame Us, awesome. Rebel Robot, probably my favourite song on here. Well, there's a French title on here that I do love. I'll try and say it. Les Cigars Volants. Brilliant song. And what else? The Multiverse. Yeah, actually, no, I probably like that better than Rebel Robot. The Multiverse is brilliant, and brilliant science fiction song about the multiverse, and yeah, really good song, a fantastic riff in that song, and just quite a different sounding song that's still very much Voivod, but yeah, it really stands out as a brilliant song. And Reactor, Invisible Planet, quite a long album as far as songs, 13 songs. Voivod generally don't have too many songs on an album. They're generally sort of around the 9 to the 10 mark. This has got 13 songs on there, so quite long as far as track listings. I have no idea. I didn't bother to look which is their longest album as far as time. Might be Outer Limits, but yeah, coming in at number 10, Voivod, 2003. It could have almost been higher than this next one, but one song pulls this album quite up a bit. This is one of the ones I was surprised about. Don't get me wrong, I still love this album, but for some reason in my mind I kind of had this just subconsciously ranked higher, and then when I listened, I love it, but I loved quite a few albums a lot more than it. And I still think that this album probably gets pulled up a little bit further because of one song on here. Not saying there's only one good song on here, not at all. There's a lot of excellent songs, but one song on here, and I think you know which album I'm talking about now, really pulls this album up. Otherwise, it might be below Voivod, I think. But anyway, coming in number 9, Outer Limits. And I've seen quite a few in the VC that picked up the reissue on vinyl not too long ago. Great album, brilliant album, and a little bit of the sound that was still still carried over from the Angel Rat sound. Another album that's definitely not one of their heaviest, that's for sure. And yeah, the song Jack Luminous, the big masterpiece, 17 minutes long, will always mean that this album is a lot further up than others. You take that song off, it might drop down a couple of pegs maybe, I don't know. But there's still great stuff. Fix My Heart, I love. The Lost Machine, great. Moonbeam Rider, really interesting, excellent song. Time Warp, Wrong Way Street, We Are Not Alone. See, lots of science fiction stuff all throughout this. A really, really good, excellent album. Very progressive. Probably their second most progressive album. But still retained a little bit of the straight up hard rock, almost poppiness of Angel Rat. Now Blackie had left at this stage, so we've only got Snake, Piggy, and Away on this album. I can't remember. Yeah, no, it must be because there's only 3. I started to think, hang on, maybe Blackie did do this. I don't know whether maybe did he record vocals on this one? I can't remember now. No, that's right. Just as I'm pulling out the CD booklet to have a look and waste time, a guy by the name of Pierre St. John did bass. And here's a fun little trivia fact for you. As far as I'm aware, he's the only official member of Voivod that's recorded that didn't actually ever have a nickname. As far as I'm aware, there may have been someone else that did a little bit of session work or whatever, but he's the only official Voivod member that's recorded that I know of that didn't have a nickname, Pierre St. John. So he did the bass. Because I was suddenly looking and I'm thinking, well, there's only 3 on here. There's the back cover. And I'm thinking, well, hang on, who did the bass then? And then all of a sudden I remembered, yeah, it was Pierre St. John. But yeah, great album, 1993, Outer Limits. Happens to be the shirt that I'm wearing today. And yeah, coming in at number 9. Coming in at number 8, a little bit step up again, actually. As I say, Negatron, Voivod, Outer Limits, and this one were the ones that I really had to listen to a lot to work out where I was going to put them. They felt like a group that was quite together, but this one came out quite a bit on top. And if I had a lot more history with this, it might even come up further, maybe, I don't know. I don't know if I could beat the next 2 that are in front of it, but anyway. Coming in at number 8 is Phobos, 1997. Another industrial album, like Negatron, but I feel with this one, they got a bit better. Negatron was the first time they tried industrial, and then when they came back to it with the second try of it, I felt like they really nailed it a lot better. And this is industrial, very much so. You know, this could be, at times, you can hear a little bit of Ministry in this sound, you know, like Ministry, Psalm 69 type era. Even with Negatron and even this one, there's even a little bit of Fear Factory in there. So, of course, I'm going to like that, right? But this one has a lot more progressive sound, I think, than Negatron as well. Avant-Garde, quite avant-garde as well at times, this album. So this is only a 3-piece, again, at this stage. Definitely only a 3-piece. This came out in 1997. You've got Away, Piggy, and Eric Forrest, again, E-Force. So you're doing the vocals and the bass. Rise, Mercury, Bacteria, The Tower, Forlorn. Excellent song, and I don't like covers. You all know that very well. But one other thing that endears me even more about this band is they do covers really well, and I have quite a disdain for covers. But they do 21st Century Schizoid Man, King Crimson, of course. King Crimson, one of their biggest influences, and they nail it. Absolutely nail it. So yeah, Phobos coming in at number 8, 1997. Now, coming in number 7, and not a massive split between the bottom half and the top half, but a little bit. Like I can feel that when I was looking at Phobos and the next album, I went, I like this. I like Phobos a lot. Could it be higher? And then I looked what all the next albums were, and I went, no, I don't think so. I don't think any of the bottom half could ever get into the top half. The bottom half, some of the order there could change. Maybe the top half, a little bit of the order can change, although I don't think so. But I don't know that anyone from the bottom half could ever get up to the top half. But who knows what the next album will be. So coming in at number 7, the album that started it all for me. I heard this in 1986. I had this on cassette. This is a reissue. Is Raw. Raw. Do you want to say it how it looks? A brilliant album. Absolutely brilliant album. Raw, aggressive, thrash, and probably the most, even though this is their second album, I don't know what it is, but probably the one that comes across the most of me is crossover punk thrash. Definitely Snake's vocals has a lot to do with it. This is the classic lineup, of course. Snake, Piggy, Away, and Blackie. There they are on the back there. You can see, once again, Away's awesome artwork. That's on everything. Excellent album. Funny because, as I say, this is their second album, but for me it's a little bit more raw and in your face than the first album. That's interesting, I know. Some people complained about the production on this album. I listened to this yesterday, and no, I don't think so at all. For 1986 and what they were doing and what they were after and the sound that they were for, I have no complaints about the production on this album at all. I didn't back then when I had it on cassette. I never got this on CD. I don't think so. No, I never did. I've never had this on CD. Yeah, I've never complained about the production at all. I think it's perfect for what this album is. It's meant to be raw, thrash, aggressive. Absolutely love this. Great reissue. I can't remember when this reissue came out. ...2016, I think it was, when I got it. I think 2016, it looks like it says. I don't really want to wear glasses. I do have glasses, which I mainly use, would you believe, when I'm listening to records and I want to read the lyrics or the liner notes. It's probably the only real time I put on glasses because it's always in such fine print. Yeah, record. Of course, you've got the ripping side, and then you've got the thrashing side. Brilliant. And as you can see, yeah, the lyrics all written by Away in his usual style. But, yeah, without glasses, not the easiest to ever see, that's for sure. In fact, on the Couture's album, it's even worse because it's the little black writing on a red background, and yeah, not the easiest. But yeah, an album, an absolutely brilliant album, one of the best albums in my opinion of 1986, which I know that's saying a lot because 1986 a lot of people think is one of the greatest years in heavy metal, but I love this. I have a very dear spot for this album because it's what started me with Voivod. I heard this probably 6 months after it came out, I reckon, in 1986, and I just went, wow, no one sounds like this. Absolutely no one. And I've loved them ever since. I used to talk about this band all the time, and people would just look at me with the most ridiculous look on their face. Who? Who's Voivod? What the hell are you talking about? And even to this day, there's still so many people when I talk about them online or something, I have to send them clips from YouTube or whatever to let them know who Voivod is, and it's just strange. For me, whenever people talk about bands that should have been bigger, they're fairly big, but whenever I talk about bands that should have been bigger, this band should be right up there for me. But yeah, 1986, this was their second album overall. This comes in at number 7 for me. Ripping Headaches, an all-time classic, absolutely brilliant. Horror, I love, absolutely love. Korgel the Exterminator, so good, you know, kind of their mascot, I guess. And Thrashing Rage, Hell Driver, Build Your Weapons to the Death, so good, absolutely brilliant. And let me just say, do you know I've never seen Voivod live, one of my all-time favourite bands. They've never been to Perth. They did come to Australia 2 or 3 years ago, I think it was now, but they only did the East Coast, and, you know, if I was going to fly and for every single band I wanted to see that didn't come to Perth, it would be an even more expensive hobby than it already is. So hopefully they do come back to Australia and they do come to Perth. It would have been so good if they'd ever come to Perth when Piggy was still alive. But yeah, one of those bands one of my all-time favourites that I've never seen. I never got to see Rush. 50 years and Rush never came to Australia. But anyway, I don't want to get sidetracked too much because this is already going to be a long video. Number 6, coming in at number 6, War and Pain. I love this, and I like this more than Raw, actually. And it's funny, as I say, even though this was their debut and it was before Raw, I just find this one's not not more polished, but I think the songwriting's a little bit better. And I just, yeah, I do tend to reach for this one just a little bit more these days. I have a strong sentimental attachment to Raw, but I think this is one of the best albums of the 1980s. Certainly the early 80s, I probably should say, actually, because thinking what's coming next. But yeah, the first half of the 80s for sure. I think this is one of the best albums. It's a landmark album. It's where they started. It's where this sound started. You know, this is one of the earliest, for me, the earliest starts of technical thrash, progressive thrash. Not really that progressive on this album, but you can hear it's there. You know, you can hear that's what will happen. That's what's going to become. This is a beautiful reissue. A metal blade, that wonderful jacket. This sounds absolutely amazing. It really does. I love the sound of this. There we go. Voivod, War and Pain, 1984. You know, so they were quite a bit earlier. You know, they were certainly in the early areas of earlier thrash. You know, they weren't. They didn't come late to the party, that's for sure. And they'd started in 1982. So there we go. War and Pain coming in at number 6. Warriors of Ice, some of my favourites on here. Warriors of Ice, the song Voivod, absolutely love. War and Pain, the title track. Live for Violence. Nuclear War is probably my favourite overall on this album. Absolutely love it. Man, I love this album. Could even be a little bit higher, but the next two albums might surprise you how high they are, considering how new they are. And my love of prog helps push them up, because there's not a whole lot of prog on this or Raw, but yeah, this comes in at number 6, and incredible, absolutely incredible album. Coming in at number 5, and considering where Infini is on the list, down there at number 13, loved it a lot. Once again, when these next two that are on the list came out, just blew me away that a band this late in their career, they lost their soul, their driving man, the guy that was behind them in Piggy. And then they come out with this in 2013. So coming in at number 5, Target Earth. Man, this is... If you're a Voivod fan as well that only knows their older stuff or things like that, and you've never listened to this and the one that's coming up next, man, these two albums are every bit in the wheelhouse with that big classic 3 Voivod albums. No doubt about it. Yes, there's no Piggy anymore. In fact, this one's got Blackie on it. The next one doesn't have Blackie on it. This is Away, Snake, Blackie, and a guy called Chewy, who would take over the lead guitar roles after Piggy passed away. This is brilliant. This is a fucking brilliant album. Always blows me away when bands this late into their career can put out such great stuff, and this really is. The title track, I mean, you start off with that. The title track, just incredible. Kluskap Okom, also good. Mechanical Mind, Warcaic, Resistance, Artifact. You know, there's the mascot still going strong. This blew me away when it came out. Absolutely loved it. And I went, whoa, Voivod are really, they're not going to just whimper away and that's it now. Infini worried me slightly. I thought, I love it, but I hope now it's not going to be kind of all like this. And then when this album came out, I went, no, it's not at all. Magnificent. A fantastic blend of what they're really known for. Technical thrash, progressive metal. That's probably the best way to describe it. Fantastic. Heavy enough. Good, it's metal for sure. Just can't say enough about that album. Brilliant. So I kind of previewed a little bit what was next. So coming in at number 4, their most recent album, On this album, it has one of my favourite Voivod songs of all time and one of my favourite songs, period, of all time. And that pulls the album up over Target Earth. Other than that, they're probably about the same. But to me, you know, this is their 14th album, and you know, what's that? 30. My maths is terrible this morning. 36 years after they started, they brought this out, coming in at number 4, The Wake. This is magnificent. Once again, as I say, if you only know early Voivod or you haven't listened to them for a long time, whatever, I urge you to get any 2 of these last albums. I just couldn't believe this. When I first heard it, I went out and bought this the day it came out and put it on. I went, wow, this is incredible. All these albums that I've loved for so long and listened to and this thing for so long, and this one gets into number 4, no question about it. Just so incredible, absolutely incredible. The End of Dormancy, Inconspiracy, Spherical Perspective, Always Moving. In fact, I think Always Moving might have been a single or a video single. I'm pretty sure it was. But there's a song on here. Already they had me going because they titled the song Event Horizon. So I was already like, okay, all right, now, yeah, I'm interested, you've got me. The riff on Event Horizon, the main riff that it starts out at the start of the song and then you hear it come back quite a few times throughout the song, is one of my favourite riffs of all time. And it's got Voivod written all over it, that riff. It's catchy, it's brilliant, it's quirky, it's weird, but it hooks. It's got a big hook to the riff as well. And for me, that's what Voivod is all about. And that song, for me, sums up everything that's all about Voivod. And it talks about space, deep space, Event Horizon. So, if you want to check out something before you check out this whole album or later albums or any of Voivod, check out the song Event Horizon. Easy to remember. One of my favourite movies of all time, to be honest. Love this album. Technical thrash, progressive metal, progressive thrash, just magnificent, absolutely magnificent. One of my favourite modern thrash albums, even though it's not exclusively thrash. One of my favourite modern thrash albums. I think it's absolutely fantastic. So here we are. I'm pretty sure you may have known what would be the top 3. These 3. And I'm not just going on whatever anyone says. I always listen to things in a vacuum. It doesn't really worry me what other people think, whatever. But these are considered their classics. It's like their holy trinity, if you like, the big 3. I thought this was going to be really difficult to separate, and it was. But number 1, I just kept coming back to, and I couldn't escape it, and so then it was about separating 2 and 3. And I wouldn't say it was easy, but I was surprised how I was quite quickly able to separate them. And realistically, they're all 10 out of 10, okay? Realistically, they're all 10 out of 10. It's just little tiny things where I might like a bit more. So coming in at number 3, from 1989, you've got Nothing Face. I know a lot of people might have this as their number 1. Probably their most straight up, just progressive metal. Of all their albums, this would be the one where you can just give the one tag to it and say progressive metal. And this is the one. I mean, you know, for goodness sake, there's even the great cover of here of Astronomy Domine, the Pink Floyd cover. So that, you know, that tells you what this album is all about, and it is. Let that cover let you know what this album is all about. It is a masterpiece. Do not mistake the fact that this is number 3. A very large percentage of metal bands will never ever get close to making an album this good. It's as simple as that. Brilliant. Not quite as heavy and metallic as the 2 that are above it. Maybe that's why, although as you know I'm a massive prog fan, that doesn't really worry me. I mean, Gentle Giant had no metallic sound at all, and I absolutely adore them. The Unknown Knows, Nothing Face, the title track, Astronomy Domine. As I say, I can't stand covers normally, but that is one of the best covers of all time. What do you got? Missing Consequences. I mean, I can just go through and name every song because there's no point telling you what my favourites are because I love them all. Pre-Ignition, Into My Hypercube, just incredible. I love this album. It's just the font's a little bit hard to read and I was trying to remember them off the top and read at the same time and getting a little bit confused. But X-Ray Mirror, love this album. The classic lineup, yeah, just, I don't know what else to say. A masterpiece, an absolute masterpiece, coming in number 3, 1989. So here we go. Coming in at number 2. So when I say what that is, you'll know what number 1 is, of course. But initially it was close. But this is going to give it away as well. My favourite album by them, and I talked about this in a previous video, I think has one of the greatest sides of any metal album ever made. So that will tell you what number 2 will be as well. So coming in at number 2 from 1988, Dimension Heartross. There's no fault to this album. It's just because what's coming in at number 1, it has that side of an album that I think is just... It could be on the Mount Rushmore of sides of albums for me. And that's probably about the only reason why. I do like this just a little bit more than Nothing Face because it's still as progressive as Nothing Face, but it has a little bit more of the... just a touch more of the earlier Voivod metallic sound. And I think that's why I like it just a bit more than Nothing Face. Experiment, unreal. Tribal Convictions, absolutely incredible. Probably my favourite song on here, although those drums that Tribal Convictions start out in, it actually sounds tribal, so good. Technocratic Manipulators, very good. The other one that may be my favourite, either Chaos Mongers or Macro Solutions to Mega Problems. Magnificent. Just so good. This came out, as I say, 1988. I may have said that already. The classic lineup. Once again, yeah, the lyrics actually not too bad on this because you've got the black on the white, so it's not too bad to read. There they are. Try and get that so it's not, yeah. And then Snake, Blackie, Away, and Piggy. The classic lineup. The absolute classic lineup. Show the record. Once again, they've got the epilogue side and you've got the prologue side. So there we are. Dimension Heartross. Outstanding. Absolutely outstanding. This would also be... Nothing Face is quite progressive, so if you're not a big fan of progressive stuff, maybe not. But this one also, I think, would be a good introduction as well. It kind of has a great mix of everything they'd done before with a window of what was coming as well with the more progressive nature. So this is a very good gateway album for Voivod as well. One thing I noticed about all the Voivod albums actually doing this, on my Facebook page, Headbangers, I took a photo of them all and said, you know, I'm doing the listing. And I noticed that a lot of the album covers, very similar covers throughout. Colours, I mean, sorry. So sort of purples, pinks, reds with blacks. Very, very similar colour scheme throughout their whole discography. But yeah, number 2, coming in number 2, Dimension Heartross, 1988, a masterpiece, absolute masterpiece. So now, if you know the Voivod catalogue, you'll know what's coming in at number 1. And I actually showed this a video ago. And as I say, the reason this one finishes at number 1 above Nothing Face and Dimension Heartross is because, don't get me wrong, those albums are fantastic all the way through. But side B of this album, I think, yeah, is one of the greatest sides of any metal album ever made. It's incredible. It should be on Mount Rushmore of metal sides. So coming in at number 1, one of the greatest metal albums of all time. Voivod Killing Technology, 1987. Brilliant. For me, this is I think the greatest. I know that's not a massive subgenre, but I think this is the greatest progressive technical thrash album of all time. I love it. I love it even a little bit more than Rust in Peace, because I think Rust in Peace was sort of getting into that technical thrash, not really progressive, but technical thrash sort of sound. Just magnificent. I don't know what else to say, really. I talked a bit about this on the last video, and I made it a few times on videos. Forgotten in Space, one of my favourite songs of all time. The riff on Forgotten in Space, I can just listen to on loop over and over again. I'd never get bored of it. That could be the ringtone on my phone, and I'd never get bored of it. It's so good. Forgotten in Space, Ravenous Medicine, Order of the Black Guards, come on. This is not an exercise. Incredible. But then, you know, don't get me wrong, side one is no dud. It's no bunny at all. It's, you know, it's still absolute perfection. Killing Technology, Overreaction, and Tornado. A perfect album for me. I could not change one note. There's nothing on here I don't like. The production is outstanding. The sound on this record is brilliant. I do have this on CD as well. I had this on cassette as well. Just everything, absolutely everything. I think, yeah, when I said War and Pain was one of the best metal albums of in the 80s, I went, hang on, dude. Dimension Heartross, Nothing Face, and Killing Technology of the 80s, so that's a bit silly. But yeah, that's what I meant, early 80s. For me, this is easily one of the best albums, one of my favourite albums, easily, of the 80s metal albums. For me, when I think of great 80s metal albums, this one stands out by a mile. I've got it upside down, hang on. I'll do it like that. Voivod, Killing Technology. Of course, you've got the killing side and you've got the ravenous side. Love how they do that. This sounds fantastic. I got this reissue at the same time as some of those other ones on vinyl. So I'm pretty sure it's 2016. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's 2016. I can't really read it well. It's either 2016 or 2018. When you can't read fine print, 6s and 8s look very similar. But yeah, if you don't know Voivod, you never heard them, you know, this is their classic. This is their masterpiece for me. This is just, and even the album artwork, of all their album artwork, that lets you know what this band is all about. The classic logo, they've changed their logo a lot over the years, but that's the classic logo, which, if you ask me, Vector kind of ripped off a little bit. Just everything about it. Love, love, love. And if you've never heard Voivod, you want to start off with a couple of songs. I think the best one to start off with would be either Forgotten in Space, Ravenous Medicine, or the song off The Wake, Event Horizon. So there we are, coming in at number 1 from 1987, Voivod, Killing Technology. Can't put into words how much I love this record. So there we go. That's my list. I'm not going to put them all back through again because I've got them in a bit of a pile now with sleeves and other things. So, but yeah, and the video's probably going to be quite long anyway. So yeah, that's my ranking the Voivod studio albums. It was a lot of fun, but a little bit of pressure because I love this band very much. I wanted to make sure I got it really right and I'm happy with it, and I didn't want to go back and look at this video in a week and go, oh no, dude, what are you talking about? I'm pretty happy. Some of that might change a little bit. I reckon the only bits that would maybe change is perhaps even Couture's, Negatron, Voivod, Outer Limits, Phobos. That might be the only one that's interchangeable. The rest I'm pretty happy with. And don't be sad, as I say, if something you love is right down the bottom. Music is subjective. We all hear things differently. We all interpret it different in our brains. And even Angel Rat, that finished 14th, as I say, is still 8.5 out of 10. So, yeah, There's no shadow on that at all, no dark cloud. But I really hope you enjoyed this. If you don't know Voivod, I hope it helps you get into them. If you know a little bit of Voivod, I hope maybe this gets you into them more and gives you more things to find and check out and get into. And if you do love Voivod, well, I hope you love this video. Thank you all for watching. I really appreciate any time that you give to watch my channel and videos. It means a lot to me because I love sharing music, and music is my absolute obsession and passion. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you soon.